So in this one, we're going to create a new instance method specifically for getting the link for any particular model. Now, this would be used for any model that has an actual link to it. So it means that it has a URL and it's already set up in some form. So let's actually take a look at the URL first in urls.py. Here's the URL itself. Right? So if we wanted to actually link to this, there's a long way to do it and a short way. So the long way would be in our models for our profiles. Let's jump into profiles.models. So a long way would be, say, def get absolute URL. We would return a string of profiles slash then the username. So let's do %s here and then do %self.user.username. So this is a long way to do it. So if we look back in our URL, that's the username. But this is not very good, because what if we changed the URL itself to p, or just to slash, or to the user, or whatever? It's going to change how this absolute URL is actually rendered. So that's what we want to do now. And we're going to do this using a concept called reverse. So what reverse does, it's a URL resolver, but it does it the reverse way. So what that means is, basically it's going to look for a URL name. So in this case, a URL name is profile. And then it's going to attach whatever we use with reverse to this URL, right? So let's actually do it so we can see it in action. So it's from Django.core, from Django.core.url resolvers import reverse. And now we're going to get the URL equals to reverse, and then the URL name, so whatever the view itself that we named it, so we name it here. So whatever this name is, we're going to grab that. In this case, it's profile. So profile. And then we're going to add keyword arguments in here. And we're going to call it, first of all, the keyword argument is username, and it's self.user.username. Right, so this is actually giving us that URL. Right, so username is this argument here. If we were doing question single, it'd be roughly the same. I'm going to go ahead and copy this just for question single, just to show you. We'll do question underscore single then. And we'd see in here, the argument is an ID. So it'd be ID self.id. So that would be for question single. But of course, this is not question single. This is get absolute URL for the profile. So now we've actually designed it. This is actually the URL for it, so then we would just return that URL. And this is a method that's used on all sorts of Django models. So it's something that you would want to use get absolute URL as the method name. You don't want to divert from that, because other models actually take advantage of using get absolute URL. So this is the best practice of using this particular URL or this particular method. So since we have this in our home.html, where our user was, remember the user, since we could do match.profile.picture.url, we can also do match.user, so match.user.profile.get absolute URL, and this, should be match underscore user. And then we can actually see this in action. So let's go back and refresh. And now it's showing us the different links. Now, it's not very clear, but it's showing us profile. Now again, if I changed it to ID, so let's actually go and even change it to ID. And we'll say question single and do, I'll just undo everything here. Question single here. Just showing you for purposes of what this is doing. And we return the URL. And it's showing us question 2, question 3, right? So it's actually showing us these different URLs. Now it's not checking to make sure that that actually exists, or that URL actually exists, but it is actually trying to do it. Like, so question single 4, so if we actually went to this URL, press enter, we'll get a page not found, right? So this is actually an error itself, so you would want to check and make sure that this is the case. But for us, this is definitely a profile name, and the way we've wrapped our URL, that it's definitely going to show up in some form, unless we have some privacy or different settings in our views to make it not show up. So that's that. All right, so going back in here, we've got this. Now we've got the profile and the link to it. So we can actually update that link in our home.html by just saying a href equals to this link. And we'll add it to the username, and we'll also add it to the picture. And the reason I'm separating it is so there's not a line that goes underneath. So if I didn't separate it, let's go ahead and cut this for a second. You'll see that it's definitely associated to it. But if I do a break statement here, then it adds a little underline there, which I don't want to have, because I might not want the picture to be right underneath the name anyway. All right, so now these are links. So if I click on them, I can actually see the links for them. And since we now have this default profile picture, we can go back into our profile page, the template for it, into profile view, and we'll do load static files. And here, if profile, else, we are going to add in our static call, so static, %static, double quotes, and the image was called profile default, so img/profile _ default.jpg. So now on every page it's going to have that. And of course here we also want to add the class of responsive image -responsive. And what this does is it makes it fit into its container. So it's a bootstrap class. So if we made the profile picture div class equals to column small 2, it's going to make it a lot smaller, right? No matter what picture it is. And that's just changing the width. It's not necessarily changing the height. All right, but this is get absolute URL. So if you have any questions on that, let us know. Otherwise, let's keep going.